I'm going to be giving report on a 27-year-old male who came in to get a head, face, eyes, nose, mouth, ears, and throat assessment. I started off by palpating his head. He denied any tenderness to his head. I didn't notice any lumps, bumps, or bruises. I then inspected his scalp and I didn't see any infestations, any lesions, or any dandruff. His hair was nice and clean. It was brown and evenly distributed around his head. I then went on to inspect his face. I looked at his eyes, nose, and mouth that were all symmetrical. I then checked cranial nerves number 5 and 7, which were intact. I moved on to check his eyes. His sclera was nice and white. His iris were brown. His conjunctiva was pink on both sides. I checked the corneas from the side, and they were nice and round on both sides, and I didn't notice them being concave. I then looked around his eyes. His eyelashes and his eyebrows were clean. I didn't notice any irritations around his eyes. He didn't have any drainage around his eyes. I checked cranial nerves number 2, 3, 4, and 6. They were all intact. I then moved on to his nose. That was nice and symmetrical. The nares were nice and symmetrical. His septum was midline. His mucosa was nice and pink. Both nares were patent. I then checked cranial nerve number 1, which was intact. And then I moved on to his mouth. I inspected his lips. He didn't have any sores, any lesions, any dryness on his lips. I then moved on to check his gums, his teeth, his tongue, his soft palate, and his hard palate, and his tonsils and his uvula. His gums, his soft palate, his hard palate were nice and pink. His teeth were nice and clean. No abnormalities noted. His tongue was nice and clean. His tonsils weren't irritated. They looked very good. I checked cranial nerves number 9, 10, and 12, which were intact. And then I moved on to check his ears. He denied any tenderness to his ears. I checked the inside of the ears, no drainage noted. And then I checked cranial nerve number 8, which was intact. I then moved on to check his throat. His trachea was nice and midline. No inflammation noted. I checked his thyroid from the back, and it was negative for any enlargement, any irritability. I then checked his lymph nodes. All 10 were good. He denied any tenderness to his lymph nodes.